Hello, this is PubShorts episode 18 titled Ode to My Patients. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the Innovation Officer at Inago and Trinka, and I have with me Tony O'Rourke. Tony, hi.
Hey, how you doing? Let me just apologise for my grainy image. I've just checked I seem to be having more bandwidth issues today than usual, but it should be okay.
Right, Tony. So, can you describe what PubShorts is and, maybe brief
Yeah.
explanations regarding Inago, Trinka, and, you yourself? Yeah.
Okay. So PubShots is a weekly podcast, video cast, whatever you want to go, video chat where we discuss hot topics, hot papers affecting the world of scholarly communications. I'm Tony O'Rourke, and I'm Vice President at Inago, responsible for our publishing business, effectively. Trinka is our AI universe of tools that we make available to researchers and to publishers to help them in their different aspects of their workflow.
Excellent, Tony. So we have a lot of stories to cover from peer review, research integrity, and AI. I'm going to start with the first story, which is a heavy research paper on peer review
Yeah.
and AI. So this is an archive preprint. It was submitted 2 months ago, actually. It is titled "Agent as a Judge: Evaluate Agents with Agents." So that's an interesting thing. So Tony, if you remember, we had a conversation regarding agents. Do you remember that?
I do. And I was going to say to you, I think for the benefit of viewers, to remind everyone what an agentic network is.
Well, the best I can first explain what an AI agent is. AI agent is a limited scope AI application that is specifically tasked with solving a piece of the puzzle of a bigger problem statement. And if you connect many of these agents together, they can solve with higher quality all of these problem statements so as to give us a very good result at the end. So that is an
Yeah.
agentic network as well. So this paper, as I mentioned, it is published in Archive. So it is the reason why they did the study is that the current methods often fail as they focus too much on the final outcome. The final outcome, as we just explained, of the agentic network's output, and instead of the current approaches, the paper suggests using agents to judge agents. So it's like a agent judging the agent, and that's why it's called agent as a judge. And this framework is tested on code generation tasks. So, Tony, that's a one caveat. Again, it is on, let's say, computer and machine learning and computer science.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is,
Uh,
yeah, yes, you're saying, yes,
no, I was going to say, and you'd expect that particular sector to be sort of
yes.
pioneering in its use.
Yes, and they've used a new benchmark called Dev AI, and it includes evaluations with detailed annotations and requirements. This is what the paper states. And
Yeah.
this method seems to outperform previous methods and matches human evaluation effectively, and it claims to provide better signals for self-improvement of agentic systems. And the PDF paper is also available for reading. So, Tony, this it would, I mean, if to ask large language models to check other language models as output is one way to look at it. This goes one level deeper by asking agents to look at each other's work and improving peer review quality. I mean, this is the big problem they're trying to solve is peer review. So my question to you, Tony, is such a sort of step, is this finally going to let AI being implemented in peer reviews, maybe going in the future, maybe in a couple of years? What are
I,
your
um,
thoughts?
I think we're looking at the future. We're not looking at now. We're
Mhm.
looking at how peer review is going to evolve. At the moment, peer review AI cannot handle peer review effectively without human intervention. But I can't say for how long that will be the case. It may be that in years to come, this will be the dominant force.
Yeah, we are looking forward to it. I'm a very AI positive, AI optimistic. When it comes to peer review, you know that, Tony, and we're going to another sort of, I guess I would call this an article published in the Spectator. This is from the Spectator, and it is a well-regarded, I think, journalism source. It is written by Ian Williams, who's known for covering international affairs. Now, this paper explores how paper mills in China are mass-producing fake research papers, and it highlights that even top journals unwittingly publish these fraudulent papers. A notable incident involved, Tony, a study on prostate cancer that erroneously included women.
Yeah, I saw that. There was a bad miss on their part.
Yes, and we have how would you describe Elizabeth Big in the field of research integrity?
Gosh, Elizabeth Bick is really, I mean, there are many people involved in research integrity investigations and in retractions. Elizabeth is kind of, one of the world leading voices when it comes to things like image manipulation detection,
Mm-hmm.
fraction. She's done a lot of research in terms of, fraudulence practices when it comes to creating. So she's multi-award winning, Elizabeth Bick. She's a very, see her name written and you're interested in the whole policy of scientific investigation and malpractice, she is a voice definitely to listen to.
Yes, so Elizabeth Big, is described as a science watchdog, maybe, uncovers many of these, as in she has uncovered many of these fraudulent papers. And she says that this issue is massive and it affects the credibility of genuine research, which I agree with.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
the,
And
the,
she's been doing it for a long time. She's been doing it for over 10 years.
yeah, the authorities in China and the stakeholders in China are claiming to address these frauds, but results have been underwhelming. And many researchers in China feel forced to cheat as well. That's another problem with the system in China. The publish or perish mentality is there, and eventually this trend could damage China's reputation and global standing in science. And so this is a summary of the paper. It's a very good read. And Tony, considering that we work with Chinese researchers and Chinese institutions, this is something that we care about and we want to work towards fixing, right, Tony?
Yeah. And I think we have to be very careful not to sort of paint
Mm-hmm.
everyone with one brush.
Right.
This is a one particular issue that's driving, sort of forcing researchers in China in certain ways to work in a different way. But there is some excellent research coming out of China.
Right, Tony, I'm moving on to the next story. It's an article, I think. No, it's an editorial published in BMJ, and this is what our episode is named after. Do you still are you still okay with naming? I mean, we are trying to name
Oh,
episodes after
absolutely.
songs.
I'm not as intimately familiar with the songs by the Cranberries, but I do know the reference you were mentioning.
A little snippet from my past. My mother's favorite English song is this "Ode to My Family" by the Cranberries.
There
Yeah,
you go.
she. Anyway, so this is a BMJ, I guess, editorial, which is titled "The BMJ Will Remunerate Patient and Public Reviewers," which was very strange for me when I read it first, because it is confusing if you use patient as an adjective. The BMJ is now offering patients and public reviewers a choice: either pay £50 UK, I guess, and or a 12 months BMJ Journal subscription as a reward for their reviews. And this
Yeah.
change begins in January 2025, as it is written here. It's part of an effort to reward the valuable contribution of these reviewers, and this initiative aligns with the guidance from the National Institute of Health Research. So, Tony, your thoughts so far?
Um, I applaud BMJ for being sort of creative and trying to encourage engagement with patients. I think it can only strengthen the quality of what they publish. I mean, they're not the only publisher to do this. There are lots of publishers that have sort of patient view content from a patient perspective, but the BMJ are probably one of the better known.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that I learned is that patient and public reviews began a decade ago in 2014, and it increases the relevancy of the article, especially from the point of view of the patients. And in 2023, they were involved in reviewing most of the submissions in BMJ, and BMJ aims to diversify its pool of reviewers across gender, ethnicity, and geography, which is obviously needed. And there's an open invitation to patients and caregivers to participate. So the decision on remuneration impact will be monitored and reviewed. So this leaves me.
Yeah, and it should be. So I should say it's important to state this doesn't replace the traditional peer review process. This is an additional layer.
Mhm.
So you have the traditional research review to make sure that the paper is clinically, medically, scientifically valid,
Right.
And it's moving the science forward. And then you have the patient perspective, which then obviously gives you what's the impact of this research in the real world.
Right. So, Tony, this begs the question, right? Why aren't the actual reviewers also compensated?
Well, what you're effectively doing here is potentially upsetting the apple cart. The patient reviews and public reviews is a relatively new idea and concept.
Hmm.
The idea of voluntary peer review is kind of the foundation of academic publishing. It has been for many, many years. Researchers shouldn't be doing it for money. They should be doing it for the want to move the science forward. However, I mean, I also appreciate that, that there are blocks and there are places where paid review might be necessary.
Right. And Tony, we have the altmetric badge that we keep on talking about. So this
Yeah,
story has been posted by 43 Twitter users and 47 Blue Sky users. So all the threads that we've been talking about in the last few weeks are
yeah,
coming together. So I'm moving on to
yeah.
this last main article that we have. We have a bunch of quick hits. The last main article that we have is a Nature editorial, which is titled "Act Now to Stop Millions of Research Papers from Disappearing." I was honestly startled because I thought Internet Archive was a thing, but this editorial is brings to our attention a critical issue in digital preservation, pointing out that the rapid growth of scholarly knowledge is not matched by preservation efforts. So, Martin Eve, a researcher in Birkbeck University of London, found that over 2 million articles are missing from major digital archives. And my jaw kind of dropped, Tony. Did yours?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you can take this from a number of different perspectives. There's been this huge growth in new journals being launched over the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, a growth in the number of organizations that are producing these journals. Historically, it would be the case, if a society or a large publisher launched a journal, that journal would be there forever. It would exist. With lots of smaller organizations coming up, journals coming in very quickly and going very quickly, and not participating in some of these big preservation programs like Clocks or Portico, because they come at a cost.
Right.
Then the danger is once those journals disappear, the content and the servers close, the content goes with it. So it doesn't surprise me.
And the problem that you just highlighted is exacerbated by the financial constraint and the lack of infrastructure,
Yeah,
particularly impacting smaller journals, as you mentioned. And the
yeah.
solutions discussed in the article include mandatory archiving policies, increased funding. Obviously, we are all, we are all for that, and leveraging legal deposit libraries. Experts emphasize the urgency of implementing these measures to preserve research for future generations. So, Tony, one question for you. I have never thought about this until now. And we have been told that whatever goes on the internet stays on the internet, and now the most important things that should stay on the internet are at the threat of not being on the internet.
Mm.
We should address this, don't we? I mean, science has to remain, as in records have to
Well,
remain. Yeah.
of course they do, and that's why these organisations like Clocks and Portico, have come into existence. To be able to preserve the academic record. But it's really as they're only sustainable if the publishers are able to afford to participate. My concern, for example, I know I have a concern. I've been involved historically in things like very large archiving projects. With journals and with publishers, is how much, if anything, would happen to those publishers who have created these large academic journal archives. What happens then? What happens to that content that's been made available via the publisher's own service?
We will see, and we are moving on to the one of the quick hits that we have. It is also related to infrastructure in the context of peer review. Tony, a few weeks ago, maybe a few episodes ago, I don't know how many episodes ago, we talked about the standard terminology for peer review. So this is an article related to that. So Michael Willis discusses the development of a standard peer review terminology for peer review, and the presentation builds on a talk from the 2023 ISMTE global event, and he talks about revolutionizing peer review processes for transparency, and obviously standard terminology would achieve consistency. But the most important point from here was that he mentions IOP Publishing has already started adopting the terminology, and my question to you is, IOP Publishing is leading the way again, isn't it? As in, it's a wonderful thing that it's doing. We have had so many stories where we've said this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back. First of all, Michael is an expert in his field, so I respect anything he says. I mean, he's very knowledgeable. He understands peer review, understands the pitfalls, and he's able to sort of look into kind of the look to the horizon, and see where peer review is going. It doesn't surprise me that IOP is leading the way. I used to work for IOP for many years. They were always considered themselves as pioneers in electronic publishing, and I think, and then processes regarding electronic publishing. So this is it doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. So, Tony, this is the end of the year, and surprisingly, we have a lot of AI stories. Some of these are not directly related to publishing, but it's still relevant from the context of science. So, Google has introduced an AI agent, again, an agent that aces that's the best in class for predicting weather. So this is from Google's DeepMind, and it outperforms traditional methods in predicting storms and everyday weather. It is faster, more accurate, and running on smaller machines, all the best things that AI needs to be. And this model uses historical data to learn weather patterns. And this is called GenCast, as far as I know. It's a probabilistic, I guess, AI model offering forecast probabilities rather than a single prediction. And it complements the existing methods, and it'll be made accessible as per Google. So I'm excited about it. We are in the reality of climate change, and we need better weather predictions, especially with the help from AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Google once again leading the way in terms of the use of technology like this. I'll be interested to see how this is adopted by the meteorological organisations around the world.
Yeah, another story regarding the impact of AI in science is a Nature news article titled "Huge Randomized Trials." A trial of AI boosts discovery, at least for good scientists, and good versus bad scientists. So, this study was conducted at a corporate lab, Tony, with over 1,000 researchers. Teams using AI discovered more materials and filed more patents. So, the AI tool was deployed in a US firm, and it focused on inorganic materials. It is not yet published. This study is not yet published, and it's not yet peer reviewed. But this is another step in the right direction. People
It
using AI,
is.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's it filed more patents. Doesn't mean to say they necessarily get more patents,
yes,
or they'll be successful. But it shows the good use of AI, doesn't it, in
yes.
terms of being able to handle extraordinarily large volumes of data quickly and accurately.
Right. And one very good news for Open Alex, it has received funding. So the news is from the Our Research blog. It is titled Our Research receives six. 688,000 US dollars grant from Navigation Fund to enhance the Open Alex user interface. So this is fun, Tony. So I wasn't aware of the advances that Open Alex had made. So I checked these things out, and so basically it is to improve the UI of OpenAlex for making it more accessible so that people like researchers can use it to find and filter and everything. And this project will aid researchers in finding funding, as far as I know, trend detection and knowledge gap identification. And these planned UI upgrades are expected to improve research outcomes. And I'm very excited about it. Tony, do you have any thoughts on this?
My only thought is I'm a relatively new. I have a relatively recent understanding of Open Alex and who they are. It strikes me that this is potentially one of the most important new services for research moving forward. I do hope that some of the money that they get from these funds will be about helping to promote themselves and how the real massive benefit this will provide to researchers in the future. It's an extraordinarily important service.
And I mean, people like us, as in companies like us, use the Open Alex, databases for as a backbone for many of our products, which help researchers
Yeah,
with many things, right, Tony? So that's another thing. I'm very
yeah,
happy for
yeah,
Open Alex. And
yeah.
finally, we are at the last quick hit. Tony, the Oxford word of the year 2024 is brain rot, which is the
Yes,
supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as a result of overconsumption of material,
yeah,
particularly online content considered to be trivial or unchallenging.
yeah. Yeah, well, there's so much brain rot, isn't there? There's so much content out there. I mean, the wonderful thing about the Oxford Word of the Year is it kind of reflects society. It
Mm,
reflects what's going through society at the time. Was it last year's Word of the Year was Riz? That style or charm or attractiveness to attract a romantic partner. The one that doesn't surprise anyone
yeah.
in 2021, the Word of the Year was Vax, for example, because of
Yeah.
vaccinations.
Yes.
So it very much reflects society at that point. There was one word of the year recently. I think it was 2022, which was Goblin Made, and I don't think I've ever Goblin Mode. Sorry, I don't think I've ever used that term in any conversation ever. Yet it was considered to be the word of the year.
Well, there are many users other than us, Tony. That's the reason why it won 37,000 votes. And these were the other terms in the shortlist: demure, dynamic pricing, lore, romantasy, which is an combination between romance and
That's
fantasy, and slop, which is low quality AI content, which is what we
yeah,
see.
gosh, and demure. How demure is was considered to be a word of the year. I mean, it's a word that's been in existence for so long
Yes, but people probably have started using it more, probably
in
because
a
of
different way.
people being brain rotten, I suppose, by staying.
By remaining demure, they avoid the brain rot.
Okay, that brings us, Tony, to the end of our episode. This was the 18th episode of PubShorts. I cannot believe that we've had 18, and this was titled "Ode to My Patience." Tony, if somebody wants to know more about your work or about Inago or Trinka or PubShorts, how can they find?
Of course, there you can find Inago at inago.com. If you want to contact KK or me, we're on LinkedIn. You can contact me by email, tonio@inago.com. And please, as always, I always encourage researchers, anyone watching this podcast, to send us ideas for topics for discussion. And thank you for those people who've already sent ideas through up till now.
And to add to what Tony just said, if you're watching us on YouTube, either live or as a watch on demand, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon and share the content with your family or friends. If you like the content, if you like the stuff that Tony and I talk about, please do that. And we have some plans to expand our streaming to other social networks, but we are not so we are not sure when we are starting. So maybe you can look forward to watching us maybe on Facebook or Instagram soon enough. But that will have to be for the next episodes, Tony. So this is the end of episode 18. Any musical interesting purchases for you, Tony?
My most recent purchase, I have to share this, is the 30th anniversary
Ah,
edition of In Utero by Nirvana, which is one of my favorite records from the 1990s. And I've got it on CD, but this was a special edition with extra tracks, so I had to buy it.
I cannot tell you how many times I've played some of the songs in gigs on stages. Tony, I'm part of a couple of cover bands which cover Nirvana and the other grunge Seattle band. So it's a very
So actually, we should call you Kurt rather than KK.
I wish I could sound as good as Kurt. Anyway, so
Anyway,
so we'll continue our conversation in the next episode. So until the next episode, which should be on Monday, coming Monday, this is Dr. KK signing off for everyone who helps us bringing the podcast. And on behalf of Tony, we will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
bye bye.